Video games. For many of us, video games have been with us for our entire lives. Whether you started with an older console like the Nintendo GameCube, the DS, or the PS2, or you started with a modern day console, something like the PS4 or Xbox One, we are all united by our shared love for these pixels on a screen. And obviously, like most things, video games are put into different genres based on their content. Like, we have action games, we got RPGs, and we have my personal favorite, horror games. And if you're a gamer, then I'm certain you know the exact feeling that this video is based upon. If you can, imagine with me. The year is 2010. You're a small kid. It's very, very late at night, and if you get caught staying up, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, so it's pitch black, and you have your TV turned a bit down, but just enough to where you can still hear it. With it being 2010, you've got to be playing the game that everyone was playing this year, Red Dead Redemption. And you've been playing it for hours. Like, it's the main reason why you stayed up. You just can't get enough of it. And after hours upon hours upon hours of gameplay, you find a town. A town that no character has mentioned to you so far. And the town looks empty, abandoned. You approach cautiously until you arrive at the center. And everything, the ambiance and the music, it all goes quiet. You're left alone with no sound in a dark room lit up only by a small TV screen and the occasional sound of a cricket in the game. And then you hear dogs barking and you hear children laughing and crying, but there's no one there. Using your common sense, you can tell that you're the only person in that town. And as a kid, this horrified me. It scared me so bad that it is a core memory for me. I will always vividly remember that feeling of being in that dark, empty room and experiencing that for the first time after knowing nothing about the game. After seeing all these characters, and everywhere you go there is just people and people and people. There are things to do. To suddenly arrive in such a massive area that's just empty it's horrifying, to say the least. And in around 2018, 8 years after the sequel to Red Dead Redemption was released, Red Dead Redemption 2. And Red Dead Redemption 2 takes place a little bit before the events of the first game. And towards the end of that game, during the epilogue of it, you unlock that entire area of that map from the first game. The entire upper area of it. Which includes the town called Tumbleweed. And you can visit it. And here I was 8 years later, prepared to go back and re-experience that town and just see how well it would hold up in the modern age. Would it still be scary? So I embarked on my journey to Tumbleweed. But it wasn't right. I arrived at Tumbleweed and nothing prepared me for what I saw. It had people. It was covered in people, actually. And it was so normal. It was like every town in the game. It was just covered in people. Just everywhere. There were merchants. There were people that you can sell meat to. It was one of the most disturbing feelings I've ever had. Because it makes your mind wander. What happened here? Where did all these people go? This feeling that this town gave me, that feeling of getting the shit scared out of me, out of nowhere, in the middle of what has otherwise been a fun game, and the fact that it was able to hold that feeling 8 years later by throwing a curveball at me. That feeling is what this video is about. And I know for a fact that we have all, surely, had our own Tumbleweed scenario in our favorite games. Another example of this is Lavender Town in Pokemon Red and Blue. Now, I know that you most likely have heard the creepypasta and the creepy stories about Lavender Town, but if you're a little bit new to games and stuff, you've probably never actually played through the early Pokemon games. I barely have. I'm still in the very, very early stages of playing Pokemon Black, so I completely understand. But in Pokemon Red and Blue, it's as safe as you can imagine. It's simply a kid's game. But what happens is you stumble upon Lavender Town just naturally. And it looks fairly normal from an outside perspective, but that's when you hear the music. And it's very likely that the music you've heard is the edited version. The actual music that played in the original copy was extremely high-pitched and genuinely grating to your ears, so I don't recommend you look it up if that kind of thing can actually hurt you. But it's such a weird juxtaposition to what you're seeing and what you have seen so far in the game that it's kind of funny at first. And it's a weird thing I've heard. Some people find Lavender Town absolutely hilarious, the idea that it's scary. But some people, it sticks with them. As you explore, you are incredibly put off by the music. And as you talk to more and more of the people that live there, they all just sound sad and depressed. You just want to leave. But then you find gravestones, and through the dialogue and what everyone said, you come to the realization that these belong to Pokemon. These belong to the Pokemon who didn't faint during a battle. You're surrounded by nothing but death in a completely innocent kid's game. So we're left with nothing but the question of what makes these moments like really stick with us. Because in a normal horror game, these moments would be everywhere, and they'd honestly get pretty boring after a while. But I have an idea of why I think these areas have traumatized us and made us remember them so vividly. And I think it's because just moments before we found these areas, we were having fun. We were exploring, hunting, or grinding for Pokemon or materials. We had our guards down. So when we're suddenly met with this complete change in tone, it becomes very effective. It becomes just us, alone in a room with nothing but our fear. A fear for a game where just 5 minutes ago, we were having the time of our lives. Another game that I think does this very well is Undertale. And obviously, major spoilers for Undertale if you haven't played it. But if you play the canon route of the game where you spare every character you encounter, eventually, after the normal neutral route ending, you get sent back and you're told to talk to Alphys, who, up to this point, has simply been a cute, lovable dinosaur character who is awesome, and I totally don't love her in Undyne, not at all. Dating shenanigans occur, and after that, you're told to go back to Alphys' lab. Here you find a note where she tells you to go into her true lab, and that's when you enter it. Now, for a bit of context, in case you don't really care about Undertale, Alphys is a scientist in the world of Undertale. She's the scientist, that's her title. And her work is really important, as she has to assist these characters in escaping from the underground that they've been trapped in for all their lives. You're never told what it is she does, except maintain the core, which is the power plant of the underground, and make cool, awesome robot characters that you have to fight. But very early in the game, at the beginning of the game, it's explained that the only way to escape from the underground is through the power of multiple human souls. And this game is mostly humorous, with about a stray serious scene every now and then, depending on the route you play. You don't know what to expect when you're into this true lab. But whatever you expected, it surely wasn't this. This silly character, Alphys, had done this to these innocent people. And as you explore, you find notes that tell you more and more about what the hell happened down here. And it's just sad and horrifying. these creatures were so close to dying, and they offered themselves to be used by Alphys in order to make a monster's soul as powerful as a human soul for the freedom of their family. But that's not what happened. What happened is that it worked temporarily, but after a while their souls fused together. They amalgamated into these creatures. And you can find multiple of these creatures strewn about throughout the True Lab, and you have to fight all of them to continue. When you fight them, you hear them cry out in pain, scared of what they become, ashamed of what they become. Some of them refer to it as their own hell. Earlier in the game, you meet a character that talks about his ill mother, and eventually you recognize that she's turned into one of these amalgamations. She's a literal snowflake, and all she can say is that she's so cold. The True Lab is deep, very deep, and it's a topic I really badly want to save for another video. So if you are curious about hearing the entirety of it, play Undertale, do a pacifist route, enjoy the wonderful story that completely changed my life and turned me into who I am today. Or you can also wait until I get around to making a video about it, because this is a horror-centric channel, and it's one of my favorite horror moments out of any game ever. But I'm getting off the track. What I want to say is that there's definitely a conversation to be had here. A conversation about the effectiveness of these horrific and quiet moments in otherwise normal or fun games. It's a feeling that really nothing else, even actual horror games, can even come remotely close to comparing to. Your guard is completely down, and you're fully immersed into the game's world, so when you're shoved into a terrifying area, you really feel something. You feel something deep inside, and it seems like it's different for everyone. For me, it's a feeling of not being alone when I know I should be. I feel like whatever caused whatever happened in the game is something that's just around the corner at all times. Like, I'm barely missing it. I feel a real lost sense of power in these areas. It's one of those things that are unique to just video games because you're in control, and it's what makes them special to me. It's a reason why I love horror. It's this rush. It's something you can't force. The moment really has to be natural. That's why I highly recommend it to going into every game as blind as you can. Because if you already know what to expect, it just isn't as strong. And I'm absolutely sure that you felt your own version of these events, and I'm genuinely curious as to what these moments were for you. Seriously, if you want, please reply below and tell me about your experience with horrifying moments in otherwise relatively normal games. And hopefully we can start some sort of back and forth dialogue, and I can discuss and show these experiences that you've had in a follow-up video. I'd love to hear your stories about moments in games that just stuck with you in your head throughout your childhood and maybe even into your adulthood. And while you're at it, you can put down anything else that's in the same area, and it's possible I'll also use those in videos just like this one. I really want to start a dialogue with you guys and share these experiences with each other. But for now, this has been my look at my favorite aspect of video game horror. And I hope you all enjoyed it. And maybe I hope that I helped you remember some sort of forgotten memory. It's been Akira Red, and this is the end of my video. Goodbye everyone. Have a nice day. And stay spooky.